Okay, well, I apologize again. We had a mix up with the link. We're just telling some folks who got a different link to transition over here. But I think, Mr. Chair, give me one more minute and I'm getting my things together and I'll be ready to go. I think we have quorum, but I just want to be sure that we give a few minutes or a minute for folks to transition.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Chair, I am ready to begin. Go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Commission for the Transportation Disadvantaged Business Meeting. We'll now officially call this meeting to order. Director Darn, would you please call the roll? Commissioners, please remember to unmute your line when speaking, or if you're on the phone, press *6. So with that, roll call, please.
All right, when I state your name, please signify by saying here. Chair Stevens?
Here.
Vice Chair Gray?
Here.
Commissioner Barrios? Commissioner Barrios? Commissioner Knight?
Here.
And Commissioner Tellez?
Here.
The quorum is present, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. This meeting, you recall, was rescheduled due to Hurricane Idalia and is being held virtually as a result of that. If you're not speaking, we do ask that you please mute your microphone or if you're on a computer or laptop and or cell phone as well. Now let's move to the Pledge of Allegiance. As you are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. We would now ask our commissioners and advisors to introduce themselves and state the agency they represent on the commission. Again, please unmute your microphone or phone, which is *6 as a reminder on the phone line. I will begin. To start up, Phil Stevens from the Tampa, Florida area. I've been on the commission about 5 years now or so. I'm a transportation engineer by profession and have worked in Florida most of my career. I'm on the commission primarily due to my son, Jared, who's with me in the room. Because he's has cerebral palsy and is in a wheelchair and is dependent upon transportation to get around to do everything. So with that, Commissioner Gray, would you introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Christine Gray. I live in Brevard County, right out of Kennedy Space Center. I've had an advocacy career for the past 20 plus years because I'm a person with a disability. I have cerebral palsy, and transportation has always been an obstacle for me. And so that was one of the first reasons why I started in advocacy. And I've been on the commission for about 4 years.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gray. Commissioner Knight.
Good morning. I am Renee Knight, Vice President of Community Services for ElderSource. I live in the Jacksonville area. I have been on the commission since 2019. I have over 27 years experience working with seniors and senior programs, and accessible transportation continues to be a key concern and a critical need for many of our Florida older adults, and that is a critical concern of mine and interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Knight. Commissioner Tellez. Commissioner Tellez.
Hello,
Unmute.
hello,
Yeah.
hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. I've worked on the commission, been with the commission since 2016. I reside in Miami-Dade County. I am a registered nurse of about 40 plus years, but have worked in human resources for about 12 years. I'm retired from Baptist Health South Florida, and my interest really has been in the transportation of persons employed with disabilities. And that has been the reason why I wanted to participate in this commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tellez. Did Commissioner Barrios ever come online? Just wanted to check one more time. If not, at this time, we'd like anyone else represented. I know Rochelle Munson, you're on the call. If you would introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning. I'm Rochelle Munson. I am counsel to this commission, and I am currently housed out of the Tallahassee office of the Attorney General. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other advisors on the phone or on the
Morning.
meeting?
Krista Carter here. Oh,
Go ahead, Krista.
Oh, Krista Carter here, Department of Elder Affairs. I'm the advisor from the department. We focus on an aging population and their transportation needs.
Thanks. Welcome, Krista.
Good morning. This is Gabe
Gabby.
Matthews. How's it going?
Good.
I'm the ex officio advisor for the Florida Department of Transportation. I am the rail and transit manager for our state. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Anyone else on the call? Commissioner advisor.
Commissioner
Okay.
Stevens, I think
Yes.
Commissioner Barris is trying to log in. She was having phone difficulties, but I think she said she was going to try to log in here in just a few minutes.
Okay. Do we need to hold off for a little bit for her, or what do you want to do with that?
I would suggest that we move forward because I don't think this should take too long, and we
Okay.
already have a quorum, so
Okay,
I'd say we go
got
ahead
it.
and move forward.
Okay, yeah, we're still doing some of the introductory agenda
Right.
items anyway.
Right.
Okay, let's move forward and slides to the meeting rules. This is a public meeting and operates under Florida's Government in the Sunshine Act, which we should all be familiar with by now. This meeting is being recorded as shown on the Teams meeting initially when you signed in. And all verbal comments, written comments, text comments, including the chat box feedback, will be logged within the meeting minutes. We do advise and remind commissioners on the webinar to not communicate privately in any way, including the chat box with other board members in order to ensure that we remain consistent with the Sunshine Act. For the public comment segments, we'll follow our usual formats. The first public comment segment of the meeting is intended for agenda items only. However, on the second one, toward the end of the meeting, we do welcome public comments on any topic during that second public comment period. So the first one, limited to the agenda, please. Second one can be any topic. We have asked any participants intending to speak to submit a public comment form prior to this meeting. However, there will be an opportunity if you did not get a chance to do that. So those are the meeting rules as we move forward into the first public comments segment. Oh, there we go. Okay, wait for the slide. All right. We'll now call on any speakers who submitted a public comment form to the commission, to Director Darm prior to today's meeting. As mentioned, please direct your comments to the agenda items during this segment. We are limiting public comments to 5 minutes per speaker. If you would, when you introduce yourself, please indicate your name, your organization represented, and county of residence. We'll notify you when you're about 1 minute from reaching your 5-minute limit. So at about 4 minutes, we'll give you a warning saying that you got 1 minute left. With that, do we have any public comment forms that were filled out in advance?
No, Mr. Chair, I have not received any requests.
Okay, got it. We'll now invite any other participants. If you indicate in the chat box on Teams, we'll do this next, and then we'll do the phone. The last demographic will be the phone. But any participants that are currently in the meeting, indicate in the chat box if you wish to speak. Again, when we call your name, unmute your speaker. If you're having any issues with technology, indicate that in the comments box or call in. So with that, do we have anyone in the meeting indicating wish to speak at this time? I don't see anyone. Oh, okay. So I do not see that. Okay, lastly, I do want to, anyone on the phone that wishes to speak at this time. Remember, you have to hit *6 to unmute. Anybody on the phone only? Okay, if not, let's move forward in the agenda. Well, next, that ends the first public comment period. Again, you'll have a second opportunity toward the end of the meeting. The commission, we convened our last business meeting in Punta Gorda on June 15th of this year. Draft minutes were provided in the CTD business meeting packet. Commissioners, are there any questions or revisions before a vote is taken on that, on the meeting minutes? If not, then I need a motion to approve the minutes, please.
This is Commissioner Tellez. I approve the minutes.
Commissioner Tellez has made the motion. I need a second.
This is Commissioner Gray. I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes as represented in the packet indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? With that, the minutes are approved as shown in the packet. Okay, we'll move to the next agenda item, the Shirley Conroy Grant recommendations. As many of you know, each year the Commission awards competitive grants for the Community Transportation Coordinators, also known as CTCs, to purchase capital equipment. It includes vehicles and other technology to support the delivery of services to the transportation disadvantaged population. The Commission facilitated an application process and a review subcommittee was formed to recommend projects for approval for this fiscal year, which began, recall, on July 1st. Commissioner Tellez chaired the Shirley Conroy subcommittee, and she will now present their recommendations. So with that, Commissioner Tellez.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to give a little bit of background on that. The Florida Department of Transportation transfers about $1.4 million to the Transportation Disadvantaged Trust Fund to provide financial assistance to the purchase of capital equipment focusing on rural areas. The funding is used to award competitive grants to community transportation coordinators, CTCs, who demonstrate the need for the capital, the ability to complete the project, and the ability to meet the match requirement. A summary of eligible capital equipment for the grant includes vehicles, technology, including communication equipment and other safety equipment. These funds cannot be used for the acquisition, construction, or improvement of facilities. As with all commission grant funds, this grant is for the state fiscal year July 1st or date of execution of grant through June 30th. All equipment purchased with these funds must be received by June 30th. This grant is funded 90% state funds, 10% local cash match generated by local sources. However, the Commission may waive that 10% local match to CTCs whose service area has been designated as part of the Rural Economic Development Initiative, REDI, if requested in the application. As reported in previous Commission meetings, the completion of vehicle purchases have been delayed for the last year or so by supply chain issues and the procurement of vendors for vehicle purchases. It is our understanding that FDOT has recently awarded vendor contracts so vehicles can be ordered at this time. So now I want to go into the summary of the 2003-2004 applications and the review process. The Commission announced the application process for the FY 23-24 grant cycle on June 12th, with the deadline to submit applications of July 28th. Of those, 17 applications were received, requesting approximately $3.3 million in total grant funds from the state 90% match. Of the 17 applications, there were 5 agencies who resubmitted applications for vehicles that were awarded in FY 2022-23, but were unable to purchase due to supply chain issues and vehicle procurement or contract negotiations. The subcommittee prioritized these applications first before other projects were considered. As you will notice on the grant summary provided in the meeting package, these projects were listed first. 14 applications requested vehicles, 13 replacement, 1 expansion to fleet. 5 applications requested capital other than vehicles, including software, video recording systems, tablets, and office equipment. The review subcommittee met virtually on August 15th and included agency advisors from Florida Department of Transportation and the Department of Children and Families. The subcommittee reviewed each request and decided to focus on recommending vehicle purchases before recommending other capital projects. 11 projects were recommended for approval, totaling $1.4 million. I'd like to thank all those subcommittee members who took time to participate in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tellez. Commissioners, are there any questions? As you see on your screen, that's the recommended projects that Commissioner Tellez just talked about. Are there any questions of Commissioner Tellez or staff or any general comments on these recommendations, commissioners? If not, then we need a motion and a second to approve the recommendations of the subcommittee.
This is Commissioner Barrios. I motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Barrios, and welcome. In second, please.
This is Commissioner Gray, I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray. All those in favor of approving the recommendations as indicated and as shown on the screen, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then thank you, commissioners and Commissioner Tellez for leading that subcommittee. It's a lot of work on the side to look over all the submittals and everything, so we do appreciate the extra time that you put into that. So another item, next agenda item, but another item we have reoccurring on our agenda each year is the approval of our annual regulatory plan. Rochelle Munson, our General Counsel from the Office of Attorney General, is going to provide an overview of this plan and process. With that, Rochelle.
Yes, good morning. I think that the commission is familiar with every year the executive branch requires that all of the various commissions and board provide just anticipated rulemaking for the projected following year. We are in compliance with that effort, and the annual regulatory plan for the 2023-2024 year is included for your review. It indicates that there is currently no anticipated rulemaking. However, to explain what the annual regulatory plan actually permits, if there are any rules that were to be identified, it is not dispositive or conclusive to the extent that any rules not listed on the plan cannot be open for rulemaking, and any rules listed on the plan, if there were any, would actually be required for rulemaking. It's just an anticipated effort. At this particular juncture, the commission does not have any anticipation of rulemaking. That may change as this year progresses, but that is the factual information that will be presented and submitted on behalf of the commission. Any questions, of course, can be directed if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask them at this time. And of course, I'm speaking directly to the commissioners, but it is standard policy for which I am just identifying that the commission is in compliance. The chair has signed off on it. Because it is presented today, I would just need the full commission to have a vote to ratify the information as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle. As she mentioned, there are no anticipated rulemaking at this point in time in the process. So any commissioners, any questions for Rochelle? If no questions, I would need a motion to approve the regulatory plan for fiscal year 2023, 2024.
This is Commissioner Barrios. I motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Barrios. Saying this second.
Commissioner Gray will second.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray. All those in favor of approving it, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? If not, it is approved. Motion is approved. Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to the next agenda item, the annual operating report study. Slides catching up there. During the last
I have to change the slides, Mr. Chair. So
okay. All right. I'll go ahead and start the conversation. As you recall, during the last two business meetings, we received a presentation on the commission's study on the annual operating report, also known as the AOR system. Since our last meeting, Thomas Howell Ferguson produced a report on the study's findings, including recommendations to explore ways we can improve the commission's verification and analysis of data reported in the AOR, annual operating report. Commissioner Knight and Casey Perkins from Thomas Howell Ferguson are going to provide an overview of the report and its recommendations. This is being presented as an action item for today's meeting. So Commissioner Knight.
Thank you, Chair Stevens. So each year, the commission is required to collect data on transportation operations related to serving the TD population. These data are collected and submitted by CTCs within their annual operating reports, called AORs, by September the 15th, which the commission then compiles within its annual performance report and provides to the governor and legislature on January 1st each year. This year, the commission contracted with Thomas Howell Ferguson to assist in facilitating a study to help improve the accuracy and analysis of data in the AOR. The objectives of the study are to, number one, assess the current role of the AOR, including the processes used to collect and report performance data each fiscal year. Number two, identify strategies to help verify the accuracy and the consistency of data within the AOR. And number three, explore ways the commission can better analyze AOR data to improve the evaluation of coordinated TD services around the state. In November 2022, the commission established an advisory work group to assist in the implementation of the study. In addition to my role as the chair, the work group consisted of representatives of 2 CTCs, 1 planning agency, and 3 state agencies. The work group convened on November 15th, January 24th, April 25th, and July 18th. On May 25th, the commission held a public workshop where Thomas Howell Ferguson presented an alternative approach of collecting disaggregated or more detailed data for future reports. In June, the commission posted a temporary web page for CTCs to test uploading their AOR data in a more automated way. Stakeholders were encouraged to provide feedback on the test web page and information that was presented at the workshop to David Dorm by June 22nd. On June 30th, Thomas Howell Ferguson presented a final report for the study, and the work group met on July 18th to discuss and provide feedback on the report. Thomas Howell Ferguson incorporated the feedback and presented a revised report as part of the publication of the commission meeting packet for the August 28th meeting. The report recommends the Commission develop a detailed plan to conduct an official test run for the collection of disaggregated data with a focus on individual trips and bus passes provided by CTCs. The new process will require further testing and an examination of the infrastructure needed for the CTC to collect such data if this were to be approved in the future. The report recommends that the next test run function, in addition to and separately from the existing process in 2023. I would like to thank all the work group members for their participation in the work group. I will now turn it over to Casey Perkins from Thomas Howell Ferguson to present an overview of the report and recommendations for Commission action.
Thank you, Commissioner Knight. So to continue off of the background Commissioner Knight just provided, when you look at those defining characteristics of the AOR, that is the annual reporting to the governor and the legislature, the data being submitted by CTCs, the coordinated system-wide look, all of those can be tied back to statutory language in Chapter 427. And that's the big takeaway up front, that the Commission does the AOR, collects the AOR data, because the statute explicitly directs it to. Next slide. And just to add emphasis to this point, here we show the section of statute that lays out the Commission's purpose and responsibilities. And you can see that immediately after the opening paragraph saying the Commission's purpose, the very first directive given to CTD in carrying out that purpose is to compile all available information on the coordinated system. And this section of statute actually has 29 different directives. We could only show 7 here just for the sake of presentation, but remember the very first one, compile all available information. And in the report, we note how even though the statutory language is explicit in a sense, it's also very flexible. That is, it does not tell the Commission what specific data pieces to collect, but rather leaves that to your discretion. Next slide. So beginning with the first objective and assessing the current AOR, the report highlights how it is comprised of 5 major pieces. First piece really just contains information about the CTC, talking really basic, name, headquarter address, etc. Second piece is really just a listing of the transportation operators and coordination contractors for the county. Third piece is probably the most substantive piece of the AOR. It contains annual totals of one-way passenger trips provided to TD riders. So this is the part of the AOR that's really about what services the CTCs are providing to the TD population. Fourth piece can be thought of as inventory. It contains totals on different vehicles and drivers associated with the operations. And then the fifth piece is about revenues and expenses associated with the operations. Next slide. And these 5 major pieces, they really span the range from basic information about the CTCs to the services they provide to the TD population to the resources they employ and provide in those services. And so there are 2 important points to make at this stage. First point, the 5 categories, they really give the AOR good breadth of information. We really view this to be comprehensive, all-encompassing. So the breadth is really good. Next slide. But the second point, when it comes to the third category, and like I said, that's the substantive piece of the AOR. That's about what they're really providing to the TD population. The AOR doesn't provide as much depth of information as it does breadth. Next slide. That is the trip totals. They're reported at a very high level or a very aggregated level. So if I wanted a more detailed understanding of it, say I wanted to know the total number of trips by a combination of funding source and trip purpose. That is, I don't want to just know it by funding source. I don't want to just know it by trip purpose, but a combination of the 2. I can't do that with the current structure because it just doesn't get to that level of detail. And this visual on the right, you might recognize it from page 11 of the report, but in the report, we make an analogy between the AOR data and graduation rates in education. Next slide. But to use a more direct example of what we mean, here we have the AOR County Summary for Indian River, and this is the same example we shared in previous Commission meetings. But you see here how the total number of trips they had in 2022, that's 61,377. That annual total is broken down in 4 different ways. And if I wanted to go into further detail, such that I wanted to know the breakdown of these trips by a combination of any of these 4 categorizations, for example, like I just said, revenue source and trip purpose, I can't do that with the data that is currently collected because it is too high level or too aggregated. Next slide. So the second and third objectives of the report both further explore this distinction between aggregated and disaggregated data and its implications for the AOR. For the second objective specifically, the AOR's high-level reporting limits opportunities to verify, similar to how it limits opportunities to analyze. Using the same Indian River example here, remember the total annual trips are broken down in 4 different ways. You can see that. So one way of verifying the data's integrity is to make sure these 4 different ways of categorizing trips all total to the same number, 61,377, which they do here. But that's the extent of verification that can be done. Next slide. There's no audit trail provided to records of individual trips. And in the report, we note how this lack of an audit trail in the AOR stands in contrast to the summary of trips provided on invoices for CTD's Trip and Equipment Grant Program. Next slide. On these invoices, the summarized totals of trips are calculated to determine what to reimburse. And not only do the instructions require the summarized trips match backup documentation, next slide, but the instructions also require that this backup documentation identifying specific trips be provided to CTD to allow an audit trail. Next slide. So this contrast between the AOR's lack of an audit trail and the Trip and Equipment Grants invoices having an audit trail has already had real-world implications. For those of you who are around when we did the Trip and Equipment Grants allocation study in 2020, you may recall how the allocations methodology got rid of the use of AOR data on trips and miles and replaced it with similar totals from Trip and Equipment Grant invoices. A major factor playing into that decision was the ability to verify the totals from the invoices to an extent that was not possible with the AOR data. Next slide. Third and final objective of the report, analyze. So the report itself goes into more discussion, but as was noted earlier, the highly aggregated or highly summarized data in the AOR limits the ability to analyze because it limits our ability to answer more detailed questions. And here we use a simple example from the report, once again using the example of Indian River. To take the example I mentioned earlier, what if I want to know the trip total by a combination of revenue source and trip purpose? Using the example here, let's say specifically I want to know how many CTD funded trips were for the purpose of employment. Well, looking here, I know how many trips were funded by CTD, 13,834, and I know how many were for the purpose of employment, 5,312. Next slide. But I can't tell how many CTD funded trips were for the purpose of employment because that level of detail is not available in the current structure. And that demonstrates a very serious limitation of the AOR data's ability to be used for analysis. Next slide. However, Indian River, they were part of the studies work group, and they provided us with their disaggregated data on individual trips. And with that data provided, we were able to answer this example question and others like it. So how many CTD funded trips were for the purpose of employment? 3,117. Next slide. So getting to the study's recommendations, which you've already seen once before, but recommendation 1, this study, it was a limited study that was very exploratory and conceptual in nature. So while you'll see with recommendation 2 that we do have a specific conceptual proposal in collecting more disaggregated data, the specific tools and mechanisms for collecting these more detailed data, they still need to be decided on and tested. And while that is worked out, there's no reason to disrupt the existing AOR processes in place. So going to recommendation 2, test run the collection of data on individual trips and individual bus passes in the upcoming year, but do so outside of the existing AOR processes. As Commissioner and I mentioned in her remarks, we did launch a temporary web page back in June to test the uploading of this sort of data, but that really was just meant to help CTCs grasp what we were getting at and begin a process of collecting their feedback on the concept. And the feedback overall was actually largely positive. And you can see all the feedback we got in Appendix B of the report. But many CTCs said uploading this data would be no problem, and some even indicated it would be easier compared to the current AOR. So please have a look at the feedback in Appendix B. Like I said, we did provide all of the feedback. But anyway, our test webpage, it really didn't constitute a complete working template and instructions, and it didn't save any of the data submitted by CTCs. So that's what recommendation 2 really is here. Build a complete working template and instructions, and also save the data submitted by the CTCs. Recommendation 3, conduct a comprehensive review of CTD's legal authorities to collect more detailed data. This recommendation really did come in response to a specific CTC providing feedback, just voicing some concern about, maybe some issues around privacy. So as we noted in the beginning, the statute is really broad in how it directs CTC to compile, quote, all available information on the coordinated system and needs of TD riders. So if CTD does decide to move in this direction of collecting more detailed data, a thorough legal review of its authorities, we just feel like it'll help guide its effort in a responsible manner. And so that's my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
So, commissioners, are there any questions of Commissioner Knight, Casey Perkins, Director Darm about the recommendations? As you see on your screen, there's 3 of them. 1, continuing what we're doing this next fiscal year. 2, developing this simultaneous alternative methodology. And then 3, making sure we do our due diligence on any concerns about confidentiality of data, those sorts of things, the legal aspects of it. Any questions?
This is Commissioner Knight. I just wanted to add comments and make sure for clarification purposes that once these recommendations are followed through with, and we see recommendation 2, it's run simultaneously, and we find out recommendation 3. At some point when this is all finalized and put into place, it will come back in front of the commission for a report, an analysis, and then at that time it would be either voted in as the new AOR format. So by approving this report, we're not actually approving it going forward for maybe 2024. That's correct, right?
That's my understanding, and maybe Commissioner Knight or Casey or Director Darm just kind of outline the flow, and maybe that answers your question there. Speak about kind of the steps. This, my understanding, this is just for the recommendations for this study to continue with these events. But could you kind of timeline after this occurs? What would happen? Is it like the commissioner mentioned, or just for clarification?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think that you summed it up the best way by saying it is recommendation is to continue our exploration of this concept. In Casey's presentation, he outlined the limitations of the existing structure that we have. We can only go so far with the current collection of aggregated data. In order for us to truly understand this, we have to go further in, and that's going to take some understanding, exploration about what our infrastructure needs would be, the legality issues, as we mentioned, and what would it take to be able to put this together. And through that process, we would learn, hopefully, what kinds of challenges that we can't foresee at this very current moment, but we would be able to come back to the commission, in the next few months to say, these are the things that we would need in addition to what we already have, or these are the limitations of going this route. But until we go further into testing and we try to implement something on a broader level, I mean, we used Indian River. We're very appreciative of Indian River as a partner in this study, but we need to look at it broader because this is affecting the whole state, not just one county. So I hope did that kind of clarify and Mr. Chair, kind of your question.
Well, I wanted to make sure. So what's the duration of this phase of the study? You said a few months. Is that 3, 6?
I would say to be safe, at least plan for the next for the remainder of this fiscal year that we would be doing the exploration. So my hope
through
is
June
that we
30.
would, right, and my hope is that we would have progress reports to you on each meeting, through the next 9 months to share what we're learning as we go. So if there are challenges that we're running into that's going to require this to take longer, that would be, discussed as we go through it. So it wouldn't just be, I don't foresee it just being like, we're not going to talk about this for another 9 months from now. We're going to keep you all apprised of where we're at in this testing phase.
Okay. And so then at the end of that 9 months, obviously, if we had a new recommendations on how to tweak the process, then that would come as a separate, and that's what they wanted to make sure that would come as a separate agenda action item for the commission is, so this is just to approve the continuation, next phase of the study, to do what's shown on the screen there. So
right. So think of
this.
this. Think of this study as this explored the concept, and now we're recommending to put this concept into some kind of implementation, but we're not going to try to do anything drastic until we've had time to test. So this would be the phase 2, if you will, of the study to test what that would look like to collect disaggregated data on a statewide basis, and then have that discussion towards the end of the fiscal year as to where we go from there. Okay,
got it. Thank you. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. It's almost like a beta testing kind of, we're standing up a simultaneous system and seeing how it works and fixing things that don't work, that sort of thing.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Any other questions, commissioners?
Yes, this is Commissioner Tellez. I was curious to ask Casey or Commissioner Knight, at what point would the privacy issue or the legal issue come into play? I'm trying to understand, is it the process of collecting data from each individual CTC, what they're collecting, whether it be regarding employment or any other specific topic? I'm just trying to get my head around that.
So I'll attempt to answer that. If you look at the language there in recommendation 3, like the very first sentence, it's meant to be as part of the detailed plan and recommendation too. So the thorough legal review is intended to be complete before you even go about the actual testing of the individual trip level data in recommendation 2. Does that help?
I think once I get more detail as we move to the next phase, I'm just trying to understand if it's something we collect anyway, but we're just collecting it in more detail, what the legal implications would be.
Here's my understanding, and this is Commissioner Knight, and please, Casey, if I don't have it correct. When we're looking at this data in the current AOR, it's a number. It's a number about how many trips they provided for APD or how they provided for any of the other funding sources. But under this new disaggregate way, it would be looking at other grant data, client data, rider data. And the question may be, does the CTC have the right to that data for clients that are not CTC riders? Am I right, or do I have it wrong, Casey?
No, I think that's exactly a yes.
Okay.
Well, I think also, sorry, this is Commissioner Barrios. I just wanted to kind of add, I think also from a rider perspective, aggregated data, you're just looking at a big, chunk of numbers from the county in general. Disaggregated, you could look at every trip I've taken in a month, where I went, what time I went, how long I was there. Um, so I think maybe that might be part of the concern as well. At least it would be for me as a user.
Yeah,
Okay.
and this is Christine, that last sentence of recommendation 3, I think, is telling, build a strong foundation for the ethical and responsible use of the data. So there is always a legal question on how you're going to use that data, how that data is going to be accessible to outside parties. The use of that data is always the big question now with people collecting data. Again, and I think Casey mentioned, this legal analysis, legal deep dive will be done before we start doing anything. We need to answer these questions before we start standing up any kind of, data collection, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so with recommendation 2, it's really a recommendation to collect data that for the commission itself is unprecedented actually in its level of detail. So as they move toward that unprecedented level of detail, we just want to make sure the commission has a thorough and full understanding of its legal authorities.
So any other questions? Good questions, great questions. Any other questions? And I'm glad recommendation 3 came up because that is a part of our reality these days. So it's a very very good element of it. Any other questions? So what I will need today is a motion to approve the recommendations as shown to move to the next phase of the study, which includes the legal review and the simultaneous, after that's done, the simultaneous standing up of a potentially new system of collection. All this to be accomplished essentially this fiscal year before we, talk about anything else. So I need a motion to approve the recommendations as shown.
Commissioner Knight makes a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Knight. I need a second, please.
Commissioner Gray seconds.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Hi.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Commissioner Knight, Casey Perkins, for your work on this. I think it's a good next step forward for us. And again, it's a lot of work. So thanks for sharing that. Also, wanted to mention that, Casey mentioned, I think it's Appendix B. There was a lot of people who participated and provided feedback during the study. It's a challenging topic, but it's an important one. And it's an important part of our program, and having that more detailed, verified information about our services. Good data leads to better decisions. And so we want to thanks to everybody who helped and continue to help. There will be, that this will continue looking, for feedback and conversations with the CTCs on how to make it a little easier, a little better. So with
Mr.
that,
Chair, I'm
yep.
sorry to interrupt. I just
Yep.
wanted to clarify. Did the motion, it included, just for clarification, that adoption or acceptance of all 3 recommendations, it's not a motion for an individual recommendation, just so we have
Correct.
it
It was,
reflected.
yes, my understanding was for recommendations as shown on the screen. So all 3.
That's correct. This is Commissioner Knight.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to be sure we got that on the record.
Yeah, got it. All right. Last action item for today's agenda is to approve the performance review of our executive director, David Darm. Since commission has not conducted a formal evaluation since the 2000s, we asked Dr. Tellez to lead us in developing a new process because of her extensive experience and expertise in human resources management. We'll now turn it over to Commissioner Tellez to tell us an overview of the process that was done and the evaluation of Director Darm's performance as our executive director. Dr. Tellez.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Chapter 427 provides the commission will appoint an executive director who will serve under the direction, supervision, and control of the commission. David Darm has served in this role since July 2019. It has been over a decade since the Commission conducted a performance review of the Executive Director, dating back prior to when Steve Holmes was appointed in 2011. Historically, the Commission's Executive Committee has been responsible for interviewing and recommending candidates for the Executive Director position. David asked me to chair this committee to help develop a process for the full Commission to conduct an annual performance review of the Executive Director. The Executive Committee met on July 24th, and it consisted of myself, Chair Stevens, and Vice Chair Gray. We discussed and approved an evaluation form based on the Executive Director position description to distribute to all commissioners to complete prior to August 28th meeting. 4 of the commissioners completed evaluations which are included in the meeting packet. The committee voted to keep the reviewers' names anonymous. David also completed a self-evaluation per the committee's request, which was also included in the packet. Based on the 4 evaluations, David scored an average of 4.2 out of 5 on his review. Areas where he demonstrated outstanding performance included ensuring commissioners are fully informed on important factors influencing the CTD and coordinated transportation system, assisting the chairs with carrying out their responsibilities, including developing agenda items and recommendations, demonstrating knowledge of the transportation disadvantaged industry and policy development and implementation, and representing the CTC and coordinated systems before the general public and various organizations, and being adept at public affairs and governmental relations. In his self-evaluation, David identified a few areas he would like to improve upon, including strengthening the relationships with the Commission's state and local partners, especially with our agency advisors, i.e. filling the vacant seats, or should I say filling the vacant seats on the board, meeting more frequently with CTCs, planners, and local coordinating boards, and identifying areas where we can assist in meeting their responsibilities, and lastly, improving his skills as a supervisor and team leader, including communicating clearer, more consistent expectations, and supporting our team in meeting their own professional goals. Thank you. And I thank all those on the commission that participated.
Thank you, Commissioner Tellez. Commissioners, any questions for Commissioner Tellez? Any additional feedback that you would like to provide Director Darm at this point in time? If not, thank everyone for going through and doing the evaluation. I think it was a good, healthy 360-degree evaluation. So with that, I need a motion to approve the Executive Director's performance evaluations for fiscal year 2022-23 at this time.
This is Commissioner Barrios. I motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Barrios. I need a second, please.
This is Commissioner Gray. I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray. All those in favor of approving the performance eval?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? With that, it is approved. So this concludes the action item for today's meeting. Director Darm is now going to present his Executive Director's report.
So before I get started on the report, I do want to take a moment to recognize our staff. So originally we had the plan was to have the meeting in person, and we were going to individually call out these extraordinary members of our team for their years of service. But unfortunately, as you all know, we had to cancel it and reschedule this through a virtual means. So it's not as, I wish that we could do this in person where you could all see their faces and see them individually, but our hope is that we can be able to do this again at the next in-person meeting, hopefully with new commissioners as well. So with that, I'm going to recognize that. So the commission has had, we are very, very blessed as a team. Very unusual to find these days that you have a team that has many, many years of dedication to an organization and to a mission. You know, these days you hear a lot about turnover and having trouble retaining, recruiting employees. We have not had that challenge. Since I've been here, we've only had one employee that left, and it was for promotional reasons. And so we've been very, very blessed to have individuals with years of knowledge and a personal stake in the improvement and success of this program. So I'd like to take this moment to recognize a few individuals on our team. Kyle Mills, who has been with our program now for 5 years, and he actually originally came from Sumter. He is our project manager overseeing the Central Florida area, and we want to appreciate him for being here for 5 years now. Teresa Josias has been with the state of Florida for 10 years and has been with us, I think, since 2019. It was around the same time I came on. She oversees our all the financial auditing and reviewing to making sure that all of you in the field get your payments and all of the vendors get their reimbursement. So, and she's also making sure that we're being good stewards of our dollars. So we do appreciate all the work she's done for us and for the state. Elmer Melendez, who is her supervisor and also our budget director, has been with the commission now for over 15 years. And I've really enjoyed working with Elmer and learning about the budget process. And, you know, I think that we've, as you've seen, we've had quite a lot of initiatives this last few years, especially one I'll get to in a minute about getting employee raises. That's another way to show appreciation for our team. Elmer Melendez was the reason that happened. He started it from the beginning, and it's been probably a 15-month process to get that through, probably more than that, actually. And so we just want to say thank you, Elmer, for all the time you've worked on to help not just improve our program, but improve our team's morale as well. Sherry Powers, everybody y'all know, has been with our program for a long time now and has been the brains of a lot of our different initiatives. As far as her full-time responsibilities, she oversees the Suncoast area, so the Tampa Bay area and around the counties there. And so we want to recognize her for all the work she's done for this commission and continuing to keep us on track with all the things that we have to do. I don't know how she keeps up with it all. It's incredible. I don't know what we would do without her. So Sherry, please stay on for another 15 years. And then Cecile Del Moral, she has been here with the state of Florida for over 30 years and has been with the commission now. I want to say it's close to 10 years now. She oversees our Northwest Florida region with all the services there. And it's been an honor to work with her. She has quite an extensive knowledge, both from that side on the commission side as well as the DOT side. And we've just been, again, fortunate to have Cecile amongst the others having such passion for our community, our services. And last, but certainly not least, John Irvin, who has many of you all know John. He has been the spokesperson, the representative, the ambassador of the TD program since the mid-90s. And he's had quite an extensive experience with the department. We're so blessed to have John here. He is somebody who will tell you straight what he feels and what he wants to do to be able to improve our program. He continually works tirelessly for all the events that we do. Our conferences would not be what they are if it wasn't for John. Our TD Day at the Capitol would not be what it is if it wasn't for John. And so we're just so happy that he's been committed all these years to continue to help our programs succeed. And then last, so we had awards that we are going to give or recognition pieces to accompany this, but it's kind of challenging to do that on a virtual side. So I'll just make another honorable mention to this list is Karen Somerset, our assistant director. She has had nearly almost 40 years with the commission and has continually helps me to understand, and we really balance each other out because, from my side, I come in trying to bring things that are new, and Karen looks at things from the historical perspective and maintaining what is our fundamental values for this program. And so we could not operate and function all these years and would not be successful as a program and call ourselves national leaders if it wasn't for Karen and the following that she has under her leadership with this team. So with that, I'm very pleased to appreciate the few minutes I had to share this. We look forward to seeing you all in person where we can get you all to see each other, and hopefully that will be very soon. So.
And David, I just want to recognize it as well. I mean, that's, over 100 years of service to the state. I mean, and then, quite honestly, it's over 100 years of service to the transportation disadvantaged community. So it's literally a century of service. So it's when you look at it all combined, so a lot of work and especially, the work that went into the potential last meeting and then the hurricane, of course, disrupting. That's a ton of effort, on everybody's part to stand up a meeting like that. And then literally the day of have to cancel it and move on. I just remember talking to David that morning and, and asking an obvious question. So you want me to drive into the cone for this meeting? And he said, well, we're talking about that right now. So anyway, it was an interesting morning for sure, but thanks for everyone. I know it's a lot of work just to turn around and pack up and head back home, but anyway, thanks.
Thank you. So with that, that's a nice segue into our goals for this year. So, what we just talked about from my performance review, and Commissioner Tellez mentioned about some areas and goals. I'd like to sort of try a new approach or tactic to this. What you'll hold me accountable to and hold our organization accountable to our goals for this fiscal year. Now, some of these are very ambitious, and we may have, like we just talked about the AOR, we may run into things that we don't expect that might cause delay. But my goal here in this is showing what are the big items that we can track our progress over the course of the next 9 months. And I provide progress reports for each executive director report at this point on each of these goals. For today, I'm going to focus on the first 3 mostly because we've spent a lot of time on the AOR. I think kind of got an idea of what we're going with that. But in the sense of what we just talked about with the staff, we had this year a very, very productive legislative session. And one of the pieces of that, of our successful budget, was getting raises for the team. So that took effect September 1st for our salaried staff. And we are also looking to fill our vacant positions. We have 1 vacancy that we need to fill. We're in the process of interviewing, but we also have a new position. We're very fortunate. Again, the legislature was really generous with us this year. They gave us authority to create a data scientist position. So we're in the process of working with the department and DMS, advertising that. So in the grand scheme of things, what we're trying to accomplish here is building our team around, have what we need as a group and as individuals to be able to be successful in delivering, the expectations that the state has for us, and also to prepare the next generation of workers. There are going to be new people coming in, and we need to be able to ensure that this knowledge transfers. Succession planning, I know, is becoming a real big hot topic right now in our field. because we're seeing so much turnover. And though we've been blessed that we haven't had that quite that challenge within our staff, we certainly want this goal to also include how do we prepare the next generation of workers. So that is goal one. And then kind of taking it to the broader system, not just to our own team and our own organization, but looking at across the state. What can we do to prepare and to be strategic in the way we serve the needs of the future of our customers? We have a requirement in our statute to develop a 5-year plan. It has been significantly longer than 5 years since we've done this. And of course, there were other priorities that kind of took our attention away, but this is the year that we really want to make this the priority. So we're in the process right now of developing the scope of work. For that, we're going to look to contract with a vendor to help us facilitate that. And my hope is that we get, once we get a full board, which I'll talk about in a minute, we can begin the work on that front to identify some goals, some objectives, strategies, and engaging the community of stakeholders that we work with on how we can prepare for the future of this program. So that will be a very ambitious agenda going into, I would say 2024 especially, will be very much a part of all the discussions we're having. And then lastly, I want to mention the Commissioner Tellez brought this up about improving our engagement with the agencies and filling all our board seats. That has been something that has been, I'd say, long overdue. We are in the process of where I'm meeting with the governor's office on discussing the vacant positions for the commissioners. So we're hoping to get that worked through. Of course, that's a process that's outside of our individual control, and but we are going to try our best to try to get the candidates that we need to be able to implement this vision very, very shortly. So stay tuned on that. I'm very optimistic that we're going to see traction there. But as far as the agencies go, so we have 8 agency advisors to the commission. We're very appreciative of the ones that have been engaged throughout the last few years, but we do have some very critical players missing. Those include Department of Economic Opportunity, or as now called Commerce. And I'm actually meeting with them this afternoon to see if we can get somebody identified to represent that critical program system. We also are missing out with Agency for Healthcare Administration and the Department of Veterans Affairs. So as part of my dialogue with the governor's office and the agencies, we're hoping that we can get ideally all these board seats filled within the next few months so that we can begin to have, when we get into the 5-year plan and some of these ambitious initiatives, we will have these representatives engaged in that process. Just a real short note, just to put it out there that we are also this year going to look at our quality assurance process. I don't have much substantive progress at this point to share on that. However, I just want you all to know in the field that right now we are putting a pause on the quality assurance reviews for this current year to focus on assessing that process. What I'd like to do is have at a near future date a presentation to the commission, because many of you, I don't think as board members, know the full extent of what that process entails. So we'd like to have that be a discussion item this year. So that is listed on the goals. So with that, are there any questions as far as the goals? I have one other piece on the budget, but I wanted to stop here to see if anybody had any questions about this direction we're going. All right, we're not hearing any. So just real quick on the budget, just giving you all a snapshot of this year, what we received, what we're projected in our revenues and our cash. This is a real high level summary. The more detailed budget is provided in your meeting packet. But as you can see, we're looking at about 64.5 almost 0.4 million in revenues and cash. That includes the cash that is sitting in the trust fund to support our program. And these are the projected revenues based on what we get through various sources like the Department of Transportation, the registration fees that come in throughout the year for the license tags, and of course all the other components that we get to be able to support our day-to-day operations. So on the right-hand side is our expense budget, a summary of that. This is a budget. This doesn't mean that necessarily we're going to spend all those dollars down to the max. It's just to show you what we have committed for each of these categories. And Elmer, if I have missed anything, please chime in. But I'm wanting to give you all as commissioners a chance to see where we are in our budget year to year. So I would like to try to get more of these kinds of information incorporated into my report to y'all. So any questions on the budget? With that, I think that concludes my executive director report.
Okay, we'll move to the next phase, which is commissioner and advisor reports. So any report outs from, I'll start with the commissioners, any commissioner reports? If not, then advisors that are in the meeting.
Hey, this is Kate Matthews from FDOT. Oh, sorry. I wanted to tell you that we have a new Assistant Secretary for Strategic Development, Cam Holland, and a new Chief of Modal Development, Melissa Smith. And the other thing is a follow-up item from last time. Our cutaway contract is live, so you can go ahead and make orders.
That's great. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, that having that contract back online is huge.
Absolutely.
So
Thank you.
Get some equipment out there. Yeah. Okay. Any other advisors? If not, we will now move to the second public comment segment of the meeting. Again, all speakers are limited to 5 minutes. And please identify your name, organization, and county that your residence. So with that, we'll start with any submitted cards. Do we have any cards submitted at this time? Anyone in the chat room wishing to make a comment? I see. Well, no, those are applause. I'm sorry. Anyone raising their hand in the chat room to make public comment at this time?
Those can count as public comments.
I guess so. They do. Yeah. I don't know how you put those in the minutes, but anyway, that's for someone else to figure out. But anyone on the phone, remember you have to hit *6 to unmute. Okay, I'm hearing no additional public comments. Again, it could focus on anything, not just the agenda. With that, this concludes our business meeting. We want to thank everyone for your time and participation in the meeting. We want to say a special thank you for all those folks out there who are still helping clean up Hurricane Idalia and recover from that. I was talking to Lance Grace, the director of maintenance, this week about that, and still some work to be done out there for a few months, getting things just cleaned up and headed back towards normal there. But so thanks for that. Our next commission business meeting is scheduled for December 14th, 2023, which will be virtual. We are also tentatively scheduled to host the annual Transportation Disadvantage Day at the Capitol in Tallahassee on January 18th of next year. So this will be held in conjunction, as typical, with the Florida legislative session for 2024. With that, I need a motion to adjourn.
This is Commissioner Barrios. I motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Barrios. I need a second to adjourn.
This is Commissioner Tellez.
Thank you, Commissioner Tellez. All those in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you for everyone's time and effort, and thanks for all the CCD staff to make all this happen. And y'all have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.